Welcome to a quick sharp review of the Promised Neverland complete box set. I'm going to be talking a bit about the physical release, I'm going to be talking about the story itself, and then lastly what music I'd recommend listening to when you're reading it. So just having a look at this nice box set from Viz. This came out about 12 months ago or so. Top, beautiful artwork. Front, beautiful artwork. Sides are both different with nice artwork, and the back as well. These are the sort of box set releases I like, where they obviously put a bit of care into it. You can see the bottom, there's some there, and there's the contents of it. So volumes 1 to 20, which is the whole series. There's a double-sided poster, and then there's a little mini book, a pilot sort of chapter that they include in as well, which is nice. They don't need to do that, so always nice when we get bonuses in these things. Opening it up, there's volumes 1 to 20. You can see that there's nothing on this part here. They do have the Promised Neverland written there. And if we take our books out, there is some side wraparound artwork from what's on the sides, but there's essentially nothing in the back, which is a shame. I like when they have full interior art as well. I don't think this is really doing it that much. The overall quality of the box, I think, is pretty standard as for the box set releases that are happening these days. Probably not quite as good as the One Piece ones or the Death Note one. It's just pretty standard. There's some up the top there as well, some nice little artwork there. But I like it when they have a bit more of this premium feel of all of this stuff, which is all coloured and glossy. Like I'm pretty sure Claymore is like that. Anyway, so we've got volumes 1 to 20. They are all these are all Italian print, which I was a bit worried about when I heard that was going to be the case. They're totally fine. These are actually really good quality. Probably some of the better quality books that I have in terms of page quality. If you see, there's not really that much bleed through at all. It's pretty nice white pages. The darks look dark, the whites look white. Overall, I was quite surprised and happy with the quality of these. The volumes probably look a little bit thinner than their American counterparts do, but I don't really mind. It's a smaller box on an evolving bookshelf is not a bad thing. I did notice some of these though. I don't know if that's, see how that is starting, there's like little sort of gaps in there, and especially with volume 19, I kept noticing it because I was worried that it was going to come apart. It didn't, and everything was glued. It's just not glued into the spine. Maybe this is on some of my other books as well, but I haven't noticed it until I saw this. And across all the covers, we've got nice artwork. The spines are fairly boring. It's just a close-up of part of the cover art, and there's always something on the back, which I believe, I haven't really had like a really good look at it, but it looks like they sort of bleed into each other in terms of the setting. So if we look at volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, oops, and then volume 4, see how there's sort of variations on the same thing, and part of that represents the arcs that these take place in. So I think that's a cool detail. I don't think many people notice it because they're not spending a lot of time looking at the back of the books. But that's just something that's interesting and cool in there. So The Promised Neverland is a story about a bunch of kids who live in an orphanage, and then they quickly find out that things are not as they thought they were, and they then decide that they can no longer stay in the orphanage and need to rebel against the situation that they're in. And I don't want to give too many more details on that because it is a quite an interesting read, an exciting read, and there's lots of tension in this. The anime for the first season was really great. I heard the second was not good, so I haven't watched it. But that was my first exposure to this series. And the first arc gets a lot of praise for being a good sort of psychological thriller in the veins of Death Note. And a lot of people would say that it never reaches those highs again. And I kept reading everywhere that the ending was really bad to this series. I don't really agree with that. I liked this series all the way through. Did I think the first arc was the best one? Probably. It's extremely well done, and there's not tons of manga that are doing that really well done psychological sort of stuff. And I also like it when stories have a lot of logic in them, and there's sort of a logical progression of events, and accounting for I guess things that go wrong, and then having to figure out ways to get around that's really interesting to read and to keep going with. And that's why Death Note was so popular, and why this series is very compelling. But at the end of the day, this is a shonen series, and if you like shonen series, you do believe in that sort of idealistic view of the world, and that's what this series continues to do throughout it. Sticking to your ideals and changing your situation, regardless of the odds in front of you. This isn't a series like Attack on Titan where reality is really strong, and there are awful, horrible things that happen in this series, but it doesn't mean that everything is awful and horrible like sometimes happens in Attack on Titan. And I draw those comparisons just because I see that a lot online, people drawing those comparisons about some of the situations that people find themselves in this series, and the way that the world building is done. But I don't think it's helpful to make those comparisons. These two very different series who are both doing very different things. I like this series all the way through to the end. Did I find the ending less compelling than the start? Sure, but I would say that about most series. That the ending usually isn't the strongest part. But I think it's definitely worth a read, especially if you're into this sort of manga. Just don't go into it hoping that the whole thing is going to be depressingly dark, because there are some dark parts in this, and there are some sad moments. But at the end of the day, it is a shonen jump series. It's not going to be all doom and gloom. Also, always cool to have a jump female protagonist, which makes things slightly different. I don't know. I like Akane Banashi. I like this series. It's just nice to have some slightly different energy. It's mostly the same energy because it's shonen jump protagonist, but I don't know. It's hard to explain. The music that I'd recommend listening to when reading this is a playlist that I put together. It's called my tension and seinen sort of manga reading playlist. It's good for listening to with things like 20th Century Boys, like Alice in Borderland, anything that has some sort of tense moments, which this does, or any sort of seinen series. Again, this isn't a seinen series. Don't go into it thinking that. But yeah, give the playlist a listen if you're going to read this, and let me know what you think of the series overall. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. I think that it gets a little bit too much hate, and I think if you go into it expecting it to be a shonen series, I think you'll be pretty satisfied with how everything wraps up. I know I was. Anyway, thanks. Bye.